Well, what I know is what I've heard from talking to Hammond Bundy and reading on his blog. Apparently what's going on is they're scheduled to be sent back to prison. The judge originally had sentenced them to only a year, and they served their time, but then the government appealed that decision, and the United Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the judge had not sentenced them according to the guidelines, and so they mandated, I believe it's a 5-year sentence they have to complete. What I know is that the Hammonds at this time don't want anybody to try to stop that from happening. So I think it's one of the main problems with people wanting to intervene is if they don't want our help, I don't think it's right for us to go in there and try to force them to accept our help. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like with Kim Davis. We offered her protection against the U.S. Marshals arresting her again for contempt of court if that were to happen. And she declined our help. And I can't force myself on somebody. So that's one problem I see with this, is that guys are upset about it, and I understand they don't like the BLM. I don't either. And we definitely are dealing with a lot of corruption and a lot of oppression of the people, especially in rural America. And we all know it's by design to depopulate the West. And so we do want to resist against it, but if someone doesn't want our help and wants to go to jail, you can say, well, they're being coerced. Well, yeah, potentially. But if they don't want their family in the middle of an armed standoff, I don't think it's right for us to go in there and try to force that on them. I think it's a wrong way to go. The other big problem is that they were convicted by a jury of their peers. And as I told Hammond, I said, if you can show some proof that they did not get a fair trial. He said that he believed that the instructions to the jury from the judge were egregious, that say basically, if you find that they set a fire at all, you must convict for arson, without the possibility of it being a lawful burn. If that was the instructions, then you got a real serious point that this is not a fair trial. But I've yet to see the evidence of that. So that's what we need. Because your most important core is a court of public opinion. And if you're going to stand up against abuse, you better have your ducks in a row and be able to show that this was not a fair trial. Otherwise, like the sheriff pointed out in his letter to the community, he's like, well, they had a trial, and then the jury found him guilty before their peers. And maybe it was a wrong verdict, but it makes it tougher for us to say we're going to stand up. But the big problem for me is the fact that they don't want our help. I just can't force myself on somebody.
So there's no official call to action right now.
No, there's not, and that's the big problem. Is they don't want it. And yeah, it's a problem if they're being coerced. I think they probably are, but I think the coercion was stop talking to Hammond. We'll come get you early, but you're going to go to jail on January 1st, I believe it is, or first week of January. And from all appearances, they want to go because they just decided that this is what they think is best for their family. And so, I think we have to respect that. Like, look at the Bundy Ranch situation. If somebody else had stepped in and said, well, Mr. Bundy only wants X, Y, and Z, he wants his cattle back. We want to go beyond that. We want to go with guns in hand and go and remove the BLM, destroy their officers or what, just burn their officers to the ground or something like that. And Mr. Bundy doesn't want that. I think that'd be overstepping. You just defend the family. And here's another thing. Bundy Ranch was a clear situation where it looked like this family was about to be Waco'd. They brought in special forces veterans, they hired mercenaries, they brought in snipers. It was looking really bad. And we went in there saying, we're here to prevent another Waco situation. That's what we're here to stop. And I think that was very righteous. If you don't have an imminent threat of that kind of situation, I think that also makes it tougher to justify armed intervention. So I think it's, like I talked about in my speech, we got to look at the founders' example, and they made sure they maintained a moral high ground. And your most critical audience, as I told him when I talked to him, the most critical audience in this country is the U.S. military, your brother veterans, your gun owners out there. These are the folks you want on your side. If there's going to be a fight, you want them on your side. And so how you do it, what you do matters, and your credibility matters. And so even though we might think that what the government's position is totally illegitimate and it's worth standing up for, what really counts is what your fellow American thinks. And it's not the lefties in the big cities that count. It's the military, it's your brother veterans, and it's the people in the country. So we have to have credibility on our side. Credibility is the coin of the realm, but it's tough. No one wants to see people that don't deserve to go to prison go to prison. But I go back to the ground zero. If they're not being Waco'd, and if they don't want our help, I don't think it's, if a family's being murdered, I'm not going to ask them for their help to help save their lives. But if they're not facing imminent, destruction like that, and they don't want our help, they simply want to go and serve their sentence, then who am I to tell them that's not going to happen? I'm not going to let them do that. So I'm sure I'm going to get flack for saying that.
Part of a free country, right?
If someone does not want your help, you can't force yourself on them. Like the shop owners down in Ferguson, I can't go on their roof without their permission. That would be a violation of their right to decide what they want to do. So only if they consent and ask for our help should we be there. So that's where I'm at right now. Unless I see something else changes,
Well, thank you.